Hi, good Shabbos from the holy city of Tzfas. We are in a very momentous time in human history. Everything repeats itself. It's just unbelievable to think, from the entire world of billions of people, there's a tiny nation, one nation, the Jewish people, that everyone's obsessed with. This guy, I remember, very interesting. I was a rabbi in this little resort town, Plattsburgh Bay. He told me, the most expensive piece of real estate in the world is the Temple Mount. Think about, the crazy Muslims. They built mosques there. Christians made crusaders to come there. And of course, what is there? If you think about it, it's just a little stretch of land. But what was there was God, holiness. And what everybody's really looking for when you actually think about, like, why so many people for God, against God, for the Jews, against the Jews, for Israel, because anybody that's healthy and things are going basically safe for them, they're looking for something that's real and deep and true. And conversely, anybody that's unhealthy and things are anxious and difficult for them, we become obsessed, in fact, with destruction. Terrorism means to terrorize. A bully means to bully. Why would one person dedicate their life? You look at these stupid Muslims, and now many Muslims are beautiful and amazing people. I'm not putting them all into that category. But let's not kid ourselves. We have hundreds of millions that are just stupidly obsessed with the West. Their whole goal is destruction. And what's the point? Don't you have something better to do? Even if eat a steak or something, just go have some fun. About Hitler dedicated his life to killing people, and his own people killed many Germans. People don't know this, but I heard this from a guy who was actually part of intelligence, that he ordered the destruction of the German factories of making food before he killed himself. He hated people. So people that are miserable, and many misery is not necessarily circumstantial, it actually is emotional. We feel anxious, we feel judged, we're afraid of being further judged, and we live with anxiety. And anxiety itself, 80% of depression comes from anxiety, because anxiety is painful, and depression is when we feel hopeless against a force which is difficult for us. And so at the end of the day, the goal of life ultimately is to step into positivity, to step into God, to step into hope. And that's why the Jewish people, despite tremendous suffering, I believe, had a unique ability to rise beyond it all. And there were two factors that make us successful, not only financially, that's not real success, but emotionally, spiritually, psychologically successful. And that is actually the reason for the other successes. And the reason for that is, first of all, we knew that we were a special people. God showed us that we were chosen, and that made us feel good about ourselves. In fact, furthermore, the Maharal of Prague, one of our greatest saints, says that the Jewish people can never be enslaved. God proved to us that there is no man that can enslave us. He can take us out of any slavery. So when people are anxious, what is someone going to say? They feel that somebody else has a power over them. But if you understand that nobody has a power over you unless you give them that power, nobody can make you afraid unless you choose, in a certain sense, to be afraid of them and care about what they say. But if you can realize that they are, or at least this element in them is evil, so it doesn't matter to you anymore. The second thing is that despite the circumstances, we always know that there is hope, that Hashem is going to bring Mashiach. And so the period of time that we're in now is literally days before the coming of the Mashiach. In the Haftarah, the prophecy of this week's Haftarah is literally that Yecheskel saw a valley of dry bones, and God told him to prophesy, and he saw skin come on the bones and the Spirit of God come in. It was a Roman emperor that once asked the rabbis, how is it that God will resurrect the dead? So they said in the back of the neck there's this little bone, it's called the luz bone. And basically it's indestructible, and they took an anvil, they tried to smash it, they tried to burn it, it was always there. And I actually heard this from Nissim Mangel, who was a Holocaust survivor, that they said that in crematoriums where unfortunately they burn the bodies at high temperatures, there was always a little bone. And now that we know science and DNA, we know that's amazing, because all you need is a tiny little bone, and the rabbi said God will turn it into like a dough, and recreate the body, because just one strand of DNA is the whole person. Then the emperor said, but isn't that like a miracle? How's that going to happen? The rabbi said, listen, God makes a person out of nothing. I don't know, 55 years ago, I didn't exist. 150 years ago, not a single one of the billion people, 8 billion people in our world, they weren't here. They didn't exist. The billions and trillions of bugs and bacteria, they just didn't exist, and God made it happen. So if he can make that happen, can he make something that already existed to come back into existence? It's a billion times easier. You already have the code. So my friends, what I want to share with you is a very important lesson for today. And the lesson is that we are about to witness the resurrection of the dead. The Rebbe says that the resurrection will happen immediately. It will be the first miracle that's going to occur. First miracle will be the resurrection of the dead. We're talking about hundreds of millions of Jews who have passed. I don't know when the righteous Gentiles will stand up, but we're talking about hundreds of millions of people that are going to get up from the dead. Just last night I saw my grandfather in a dream, second time I've only seen him. And I think that this is a message. I've spoken to numerous people that have actually in dreams seen the resurrection, seen people coming out of their graves. And so this whole world is just a place where God chooses. And the moment he switches that switch for Mashiach, and he chooses for the resurrection to happen, which I believe is going to be probably the final day of Pesach, that will just be the clarity that there is nothing but God. His power is absolute. Life is all from him. We're really all just traveling in his game. And the reason we had to travel in his game in darkness was so we could pick up and think and appreciate. As my grandfather said, why do we need like exiles to make us appreciate redemption? You can't appreciate something unless you've been through the darkness. You can't appreciate light unless you've been through the darkness. So everything we're going through is giving us the tools, the capacity to be able to really, really appreciate what's going to come. And in this moment of time, we have to really pray very hard that Hashem should bring Mashiach now. There are over 100 Jews in hell, in hostages. We find all the Arabs around the world and stupid, I don't want to label, but people that have no brains and no idea about facts and history, following idiocy. And yet there are more people that are actually good and understand the truth. And so this is the final battle where God's going to reveal the truth, and we're going to be on the side of the truth, and we're going to literally be able to appreciate that we're on this side, and we're going to live, as they say in all good tales, happily ever after.